The sky above Corvus 9 burned like a dying world. Giant ships fell from the clouds covered in fire. Pieces of metal crashed into broken streets. And the sound of war never stopped for even 1 second. Smoke covered the ruined city, making the daylight look dark and cold. Destroyed tanks burned beside shattered buildings. And dead soldiers from both sides lay across the battlefield, forgotten by the war that killed them. Captain Elias Varn walked through the ruins with 5 human soldiers behind him, their armor scratched from battle, their weapons low on energy. Nobody spoke much anymore because they had already seen too much death today. A loud explosion shook the ground nearby. Dust and broken glass fell from the remains of a tower. One soldier cursed quietly while another checked the dark sky above them. Enemy ships still moved between the clouds like giant shadows hunting survivors. "This place is finished," one soldier muttered. Elias did not answer. His sharp eyes kept moving across the destroyed streets. Searching for danger, he had fought aliens for 7 long years, long enough to know death could hide anywhere. Suddenly, a small beeping sound came from the scanner attached to his arm. The soldier beside him looked confused. "Sir, we're getting a signal, human?" Elias asked. The soldier checked again, then slowly shook his head. "No, sir." "Alien." The team instantly became tense. Weapons raised toward the silent ruins around them. Another explosion echoed far away, but this signal was close. "Very close. It could be a trap," another soldier warned. Elias looked toward a crashed alien transport ship half buried beneath broken buildings, black smoke still rising from its destroyed engines. The signal came from inside. For a moment nobody moved. Even the wind felt cold and wrong near the ship. "We check it," Elias finally said. The soldiers looked uncomfortable, but they followed him carefully through the debris, stepping over broken metal and burned bodies. The alien ship looked torn apart from the inside, as if something violent had happened before it crashed. Strange blue blood covered parts of the walls. Flickering red lights still blinked weakly inside the dark hallway. One soldier whispered nervously, "I hate this." Elias entered first, rifle raised, heavy boots echoing softly inside the ruined ship. Dead alien soldiers were everywhere, some still holding weapons, others crushed beneath falling metal. The air smelled like smoke and burned wires. Then suddenly, Elias heard something. A soft sound, not a machine, not a weapon, crying. Everyone froze. The weak crying came again from deeper inside the ship, small and frightened. The soldiers exchanged nervous looks. Elias slowly moved toward the sound, passing broken control panels and sparks falling from damaged wires, until he reached a collapsed room near the back of the ship. A large metal beam had fallen across the floor, trapping something underneath. The crying became weaker. Elias carefully pushed debris aside, then finally saw small glowing fingers trembling in the darkness. His eyes widened slightly. It was a child. A tiny alien girl no older than 7 or 8, curled up beneath the metal, her pale silver skin covered in dirt and blood. Glowing blue lines across her arms flickered weakly like fading lights. She looked terrified. The moment she saw the human soldiers, fear filled her large glowing eyes. She tried to move backward, but pain stopped her immediately. One soldier stepped closer, shocked. "It's an alien," another tightened grip on his rifle. "Leave it here. She's just a kid," another whispered uncertainly. "No," the angry soldier snapped. "Those things killed millions of humans." The alien child looked at them without understanding most of their words, but she understood the hate in their voices. Fear filled her face. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she pulled herself tighter against the cold floor. Then the ship suddenly groaned loudly around them, metal shaking as distant explosions hit nearby ruins. Dust rained from the ceiling. "We need to move now," one soldier warned. But Elias still stared at the child. She looked weak, starving, and completely alone. Not a weapon, not a monster, just a scared child trapped in the middle of a war. Slowly, Elias knelt beside her, lowering his weapon. The alien girl flinched at first, her small body shaking badly. Then her trembling hand slowly reached toward him. Tiny fingers grabbed the front of his armored sleeve weakly. Her glowing eyes filled with tears as she whispered in broken human language, "Human, Don't let me die. The words hit the room harder than any explosion outside. For one long second, nobody spoke. Even the soldiers looked shaken. Then suddenly warning alarms screamed across the battlefield outside. A human soldier checked the scanner and his face turned pale. "Captain," he said urgently, "enemy ships incoming fast." A massive shadow passed over the broken ceiling above them, followed by the terrifying sound of alien engines roaring through the sky. The child held Elias tighter, terrified. Outside, the war was coming back for her, and this time it was close. The alarm lights inside the ruined alien ship flashed red as the ground outside trembled again. Heavy footsteps of war moving closer from the sky. Elias Varn did not move for a second, the small alien girl still holding his sleeve with weak fingers, her body shaking like she had no strength left to survive another moment. Outside, the battlefield was changing fast. Enemy ships had locked onto the crash site, their engines burning through the smoke-filled sky. "Captain, we have to leave now," one soldier shouted urgently. But Elias did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed on the child. She was still whispering softly, almost like she was afraid even her voice would disappear. "Don't leave me." Those words were not strong, but they were enough to stop him from turning away, slowly. Elias removed his coat and wrapped it around the alien child. Lifting her carefully in his arms, the child flinched at first, but then slowly relaxed as if she had no strength left to resist anymore. One soldier stepped forward quickly, anger in his voice. "Sir, that's an enemy species. We cannot bring it on board," another added. "If command finds out, we are all dead." Elias stood up slowly, holding the child tightly. His voice was calm, but heavy. "She is not a weapon," he said. "She is a child." Silence followed those words, but it was not agreement. It was conflict. Far above them, enemy dropships began descending, shadows growing larger through the smoke-filled sky. The ground outside exploded again as plasma fire hit nearby ruins, shaking the entire crashed ship. "We don't have time for this debate," another soldier said nervously. Checking his weapon, Elias turned toward the exit, still holding the alien child. "Move," he ordered. The team followed reluctantly, climbing through broken corridors and shattered metal pathways, while the child stayed quiet in Elias's arms, too weak to speak anymore. As they reached the exit ramp, the outside world looked worse than before. Entire streets were burning, alien and human forces clashing in chaotic battle, lasers cutting through smoke, explosions lighting up the sky like dying stars. The alien child slowly opened her eyes, seeing destruction everywhere. Her small fingers tightened slightly on Elias's armor. One of the soldiers looked around nervously. "This whole zone is a death trap," he muttered. Suddenly, a loud mechanical roar echoed from above. An enemy gunship passed low over them, scanning the ruins, its searchlight sweeping across the battlefield. Everyone froze, hiding behind broken metal structures. Elias pressed the child closer to his chest, keeping her hidden under his coat. The ship passed slowly, its engines shaking the air, then moved away toward another section of the battlefield. When silence returned for a moment, the team moved quickly toward their extraction point, but the alien child suddenly grabbed Elias's sleeve again, her voice weak but urgent. "They are coming." Elias frowned slightly. "Who?" The child shook her head, unable to explain properly, fear making her breath uneven. Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them lit up with red scanning beams. Enemy drones had spotted movement. "Contact!" One soldier shouted, raising his rifle. The battlefield exploded into chaos again, laser fire hitting the ground around them, forcing the team to scatter for cover. Elias ran forward through the smoke, holding the child tightly, while bullets and energy blasts hit the metal walls around him. "Cover the captain!" A soldier yelled, firing back at the drones. The alien child buried her face into Elias's chest, terrified of the noise. For a moment, everything felt like it was collapsing again. But Elias did not stop. He reached a damaged transport vehicle hidden under debris, threw open the door, and climbed inside. "Get in!" He shouted. One by one, the soldiers followed under heavy fire. Sliding into the transport, the vehicle roared to life as automated systems activated. Outside, enemy forces were closing in fast, shadows moving through smoke and fire. The transport lifted slightly, then shot forward through broken streets, escaping the battlefield. Inside, slowly returned, broken only by the sound of breathing and distant explosions fading behind them. The alien child finally relaxed slightly in Elias's arms, but her eyes were still filled with fear. She looked up at him carefully, studying his face as if trying to understand why a human would protect her. Then softly, in broken words, she spoke again. "Why, you saved me?" Elias looked at her for a long moment, then answered simply, "Because you are alive." Outside the transport, war continued across the planet. But inside, something had already changed, not the war, but the beginning of something no one in that galaxy expected. The transport vehicle raced through the broken landscape of Corvus 9, leaving behind burning ruins and falling debris, its engines pushing hard as enemy fire faded into the distance. Inside, the air was heavy and silent. Only the sound of tired breathing and damaged systems filled the cabin. Elias Varn sat in the back, still holding the alien child close, his coat wrapped tightly around her small body. She was calmer now, but not safe. Her glowing blue lines on the skin flickered weakly, like a dying signal trying to stay alive. The soldiers in the transport kept their distance, watching carefully, still unsure if they had done the right thing by bringing her along. "She's going to get us killed," one soldier whispered quietly. Another replied. "Or she already did." Elias heard them, but said nothing. His attention stayed on the child. After a few minutes, the child slowly opened her eyes again, looking around the unfamiliar human vehicle. Her voice was weak, almost broken. "Cold." Elias adjusted the coat around her, blocking the cold air from the damaged system vents. For a moment, she just stared at him, like she was trying to understand something she had never seen before. A human who did not hurt her. Back on the battlefield, she had only seen death, fear, and destruction. But now there was silence. The transport finally reached a hidden human base buried inside mountain rock, doors opening as the vehicle entered underground. Bright white lights filled the hangar. Soldiers and technicians rushed forward. Weapons immediately raised when they saw the alien child. "Stop!" Elias shouted as he stepped out, still carrying her. The entire base froze. Within seconds, high-ranking officers arrived, their expressions sharp and cold. One of them stepped forward, looking directly at the child. "That is an alien subject," the officer said firmly. "She must be transferred for containment and study." Elias stood still, not moving. "She is not a subject," he replied. "She is a child." The officer narrowed his eyes. "That species has killed billions of humans." A heavy silence followed. Some soldiers behind Elias looked uncertain. Others agreed with the officer. Tension spreading through the hangar. The alien child felt it, her small hands slowly gripping Elias's armor again, hiding her face slightly. Elias looked down at her, then back at the officer. "If she was a weapon," Elias said calmly, "she would not be afraid of us." The officer did not respond immediately, but the tension grew stronger. Finally, he gave a signal to two guards. "Take her." The guards stepped forward, but before they could move, the alien child suddenly reacted. Her glowing marks flared brighter for a moment, and the lights in the hangar flickered violently. Machines around them sparked, screens went blank, alarms beeped randomly. Everyone stepped back in shock. "What is that?" A technician shouted. The child looked confused herself, scared by what just happened. Elias held her tighter. "It's okay," he whispered. But the officer's expression changed immediately. "Did you see that?" He said, "She is not normal." A scientist nearby quickly pulled up data from the ship they recovered earlier. After scanning, his face turned pale. "This is impossible," he muttered. "What?" the officer demanded. The scientist hesitated, then spoke slowly. "She is not just an alien child. She is engineered." The room went silent again. Elias frowned. "Explain." The scientist brought up holographic data, showing strange genetic patterns. "This DNA structure does not occur naturally," he said. "It was created." In a lab, the alien child looked frightened, as if she understood part of what was being said. Elias knelt beside her again. "What did they do to you?" he asked softly. She lowered her head, voice trembling. "Pain. They made me. Sleep, always." The scientist continued. She was part of a forbidden experiment during the war, an attempt to create living biological energy control systems. The officer's expression hardened. "So she is a weapon?" "No," the scientist said quickly. "She escaped before full activation." Elias stood slowly, anger building in his voice. "She is not a weapon," he repeated again, more firmly this time. The hangar remained tense, but now something else had changed. The child was not just an enemy survivor anymore. She was something far more dangerous, something both humans and aliens had tried to control, and failed. Suddenly, all systems in the base flickered again, stronger this time. Every screen turned on by itself, showing the same repeating signal. A deep, unknown transmission, coming from space. The scientist stared at it in fear. "It's not human." "And not from her people," he whispered. Elias looked at the alien child for the first time. She was staring at the signal too, and she looked terrified, like she knew exactly what was coming. The underground human base was silent after the discovery, but it was not calm. It was the kind of silence that comes before disaster. Emergency lights still flickered across the metal walls, and security teams moved quickly between stations, scanning space channels and locking down sectors. Elias Varn stood near the medical bay, watching the alien child resting on a small bed. She looked weaker now, as if the truth they uncovered had taken more energy from her than any wound. Her glowing lines were dim, pulsing slowly like a fading heartbeat. The scientists had left after confirming their reports, but their words still stayed in the air. Engineered life form, forbidden experiment, unknown origin signal. Elias did not care about labels. He only saw a child trying to breathe in a world that never gave her a chance. A technician suddenly ran into the room, panic on his face. "Captain, we have multiple unknown ships entering orbit." Elias turned immediately. "Human or alien?" The technician shook his head. "Neither. They are not in our database." The base alarms began to rise slowly, a low warning tone spreading through the entire facility on the main holographic screen. Dark shapes appeared above the planet, silent and perfectly aligned. No identification, no communication, just presence. One of the officers whispered, "Those are not regular warships." As if responding to that thought, the ship suddenly activated scanning beams, sweeping across the planet's surface, searching. The alien child on the bed suddenly opened her eyes, her body reacting before her mind. "No," she whispered weakly. Elias stepped closer. "What is it?" But she could not answer clearly. Fear blocked her voice. Suddenly, all base communications were cut for half a second, then restored with heavy static. A new signal came through, not from human systems. A cold mechanical voice echoed across every speaker. "Subject located." The entire base froze. Elias's hand slowly moved toward his weapon. The officer shouted, "Seal all entry points." But it was too late. Deep underground corridors began shaking, as if something massive had entered the base structure itself. Metal doors locked automatically. Lights turned red. Emergency protocols activated, and then, from the shadows of the corridor, figures appeared. Not soldiers, not humans. Tall, armored beings with smooth black armor and glowing narrow visors, moving without sound. They walked like they already owned the base. A security team tried to stop them, firing warning shots. The bullets hit their armor and simply stopped, falling to the ground like nothing. One hunter raised a hand, and the soldiers were thrown back without touch, slamming into walls unconscious. Panic spread instantly. "They're inside the base." Someone shouted. Elias grabbed the alien child from the bed, pulling her close. The child was shaking violently now. "They found me," she whispered. Elias looked at her. "Who?" But before she could answer, the lights in the entire sector went out. Only emergency red glow remained, casting long shadows everywhere. The hunters moved through corridors with perfect coordination, scanning rooms. Ignoring humans unless they got in the way, Elias and his team moved quickly through maintenance tunnels, trying to escape the main section. Gunfire echoed behind them as resistance units tried to slow the invaders, but it was clear they were losing. "These are not soldiers," one human said breathlessly. "They are something else." Suddenly, the alien child started crying softly. "Don't let them take me back," she said, voice breaking. Elias tightened his grip. "No one is taking you anywhere." They reached a sealed blast door, but it refused to open, locked from central control. Behind them, footsteps echoed closer, calm and steady. Elias placed the child behind cover, then turned toward the door console, trying to override it. But the system displayed a single message: "Access denied, direct override in progress." The door slowly began to unlock from the other side. One soldier raised his weapon, shaking. "They're right outside." The door opened slowly, and standing there was a single hunter, taller than the others, its visor glowing brighter. It tilted its head slightly when it saw Elias holding the child. Then a voice came again, same cold tone. "Return the asset." The alien child screamed softly and hid behind Elias, gripping him tightly. For a moment, Elias just stared at the figure. Then he stepped forward slightly, blocking the child completely. "She is not an asset," Elias said firmly. The hunter paused, as if processing the words, then replied, "Incorrect designation." Behind it, more hunters were approaching through the corridor, slow and unstoppable. The situation was collapsing fast, and for the first time since the war began, Elias understood something clearly. This was not about humans or aliens anymore. This was about the child in his arms, and whatever she truly was, the galaxy had come to take her back. The underground base was no longer safe. Alarms echoed through collapsing corridors, red lights flashing like warning hearts about to fail. Elias Varn moved fast through the narrow maintenance tunnels, carrying the alien child close to his chest while his remaining soldiers followed behind, breath heavy and weapons ready. Behind them, the sound of the hunters grew louder, steady footsteps echoing through metal walls, calm and unstoppable. It did not sound like a chase. It sounded like they already knew every path. The alien child stayed silent now, her face buried against Elias's armor, but her small hands were shaking nonstop. "They never stop," she whispered weakly. Elias looked down at her. "We are not stopping either." The team reached an emergency lift leading to the lower evacuation hangar, but the system was already corrupted. Doors opening and closing randomly, sparks falling from broken panels. One soldier hit the console. "System is locked. We can't go up." A loud explosion shook the tunnel behind them, dust falling from the ceiling. "They are getting closer," another soldier said nervously. Elias scanned the map quickly, then pointed, "Alternate route." Old research tunnels. No one argued, they just followed. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Lights fading into darkness, only emergency strips guiding their path. The alien child finally lifted her head slightly, looking around. "This place," she whispered, "is not human base." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" But she did not answer clearly. Fear was growing again inside her as they moved deeper. Old sealed doors appeared with warning signs, marked as forgotten research zones. One soldier shook his head. "These are pre-war labs. Nobody uses these anymore." Elias placed his hand on a control panel, bypassing security codes manually. Door opened slowly, revealing a massive hidden chamber. Inside was something unexpected, a large ancient structure, not human-made, but clearly studied by humans. Glowing lines ran across strange alien architecture embedded into the walls. "This is alien tech," one soldier said in shock. Elias stepped inside carefully, still holding the child. The moment they entered, the alien child reacted strongly, her glowing marks brightening for the first time in hours. Her eyes widened. "I know this place," she said softly. Elias looked at her. "You do?" She nodded slowly, confused and scared at the same time. "This is where I was made." Silence fell across the group. The scientists had been right, but not fully. This was not just a lab. It was something far older, something buried and rediscovered during war, a system designed to create life using alien genetic frameworks. The child slowly stepped forward from Elias's arms, as if pulled by something unseen. Her hand touched the glowing structure, and instantly the entire chamber responded. Lights spreading like veins of energy, machines activated after years of silence, holographic symbols filling the air. Elias stepped back slightly, careful, but it was too late. The system recognized her. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. Not mechanical, but ancient. Prototype awakened. The alien child flinched at the sound, holding her head. Elias moved closer again, protecting her. What is this place? The voice continued. Containment failure detected. Subject escape recorded. Suddenly, images filled the air, showing experiments, labs, and multiple failed attempts to control something inside her. The soldiers watched in shock, realizing she was not just created, she was trapped. Elias clenched his fists. They did this to a child. The alien child turned to him slowly, eyes filled with confusion and pain. I was never allowed to leave, she whispered. Suddenly, the chamber trembled violently. The hunters had breached the lower tunnels. They were close again. The voice changed tone. External threat detected. Initiating defense protocol. Walls began shifting, sealing entrances automatically. Glowing energy barriers forming around the chamber. But instead of protecting them, it started activating something deeper inside the planet system. One soldier shouted, "It's locking us in." Elias looked around quickly, realizing the truth. This is not a safe place. It's a control center. The alien child suddenly grabbed his arm tightly. "They are not coming to kill me," she said, voice trembling. "They are coming to finish what I started." Before anyone could respond, the entire structure lit up violently, energy surging through every wall, shaking the ground beneath them. Outside, the hunters had reached the entrance, but stopped, as if waiting. One of them spoke through comms. Final retrieval phase beginning. Inside the chamber, Elias looked at the child, realizing everything was converging on her. War, hunters, humans, aliens, all of it. And now there was no exit left, only one direction forward. The ancient alien chamber shook violently as energy flowed through its walls like a living system waking from a long sleep. Glowing patterns spreading across the floor and ceiling. Elias Varn stood in the center with his remaining soldiers, weapons raised but useless against something far older than human war. The alien child stayed close to him, her small hand gripping his arm tightly, her breathing uneven, as if the structure itself was pulling something from inside her. Outside the sealed chamber, the hunters waited in perfect silence, as if they already knew what would happen next. The ancient system voice echoed again. Containment phase ending. Awakening protocol active. The alien child suddenly stepped forward slightly, her body trembling. "I did not want this," she whispered. Elias turned toward her. "What did you do?" She shook her head slowly, tears forming in her glowing eyes. "I did not do it. They used me to open it." Before anyone could react, the entire chamber exploded into light. A massive holographic map appeared in the air, showing stars, systems, and ancient war zones across the galaxy. It was not just a map, it was a control network, a system that connected life, energy, and destruction across multiple worlds. One soldier whispered in shock, "This is bigger than the war." Suddenly, alarms from human ships above the planet started flooding into their comms. Unknown energy spike detected, entire orbit destabilizing. The ground beneath them began to shake harder. Then came another voice, human command channel. "Captain Varn, we are ordering immediate extraction of the subject." Elias looked up at the ceiling, then at the child. "No," he said firmly. The command voice repeated, louder, "That is a direct order." Elias turned off the channel. Silence returned, but only for a moment, because now the hunters inside the tunnels finally moved. Metal doors exploded open as they entered the chamber, their formation perfect, weapons raised, visors glowing. But behind them, something else was coming. Human reinforcements had arrived at the base entrance, but instead of stopping, they joined the chaos. Believing the child was a weapon that needed control, now both sides were inside the same war zone. Human forces from one direction, alien hunters from the other, and in the center stood Elias and the child. The alien child stepped back slowly, fear rising again. "They are all here for me," she whispered. Elias placed himself in front of her again. "No," he said. "They are wrong." The hunters advanced first. Ignoring humans, focused only on the child, human soldiers opened fire at the hunters, energy blasts lighting the chamber. But the hunters barely slowed. One hunter raised its hand, and multiple humans were thrown backward instantly, crashing into walls. Chaos erupted. Elias grabbed his weapon and fired at the nearest hunter. But the shot did nothing. A human commander shouted, "Fall back! We cannot hold this." But Elias did not move back. He looked at the child, then made a decision. "Can you stop this?" He asked her directly. The child looked shocked. "I don't know." She whispered. The ancient system voice returned, louder now. "Primary vessel identified. Control link unstable. Merging required." Suddenly, glowing energy lines shot from the walls toward the child. Connecting to her body, she screamed in pain as her body lifted slightly off the ground. Elias grabbed her immediately, trying to pull her away. "No!" he shouted. "Stop this!" But the system ignored him. The entire chamber began collapsing into energy patterns, showing visions of ancient wars where planets were destroyed using similar systems. The child suddenly understood something terrifying. "This is not power," she cried. "This is a lock." Elias looked at her. "A lock for what?" Before she could answer, the hunters stopped moving. All of them turned toward the holographic core above them. One word echoed through their system: activation confirmed. Suddenly, every hunter in the chamber paused, then turned toward Elias and the child instead. Not to attack, but to retrieve. At the same moment, human ships in orbit fired warning shots at alien fleets arriving in system. A full-scale space battle began above the planet, lighting the sky with explosions visible even through the underground structure. The war was no longer on the ground, it was everywhere, inside the chamber. Elias held the child tightly as everything collapsed into controlled chaos. She looked at him one last time, voice shaking. "If I stay, everything ends." Elias shook his head immediately. "No," he said, "you are not a weapon, and you are not an ending." But the system responded to her presence, not his words. Energy spiraled faster, pulling both hunters and humans toward the same center. And in that moment, the galaxy itself seemed to wait for what she would become. A weapon, a key, or something neither side had ever understood. The chamber was no longer just a room. It had become a living storm of light, energy, and collapsing reality. As ancient systems fully awakened after centuries of silence, Elias Varn stood in the center, holding the alien child tightly as gravity itself felt unstable around them. Hunters surrounded the edges of the chamber, completely still now, waiting like machines that had already accepted their command. Human soldiers behind Elias were confused, terrified, and ready to fire at anything that moved. But nothing made sense anymore. The holographic core above them spun faster, showing galaxies folding into each other like layers of memory. And at the center of it all, the child. She was shaking uncontrollably, her glowing lines now bright and unstable, pulsing like a heart about to break. "I can feel it," she whispered, voice barely holding together. Elias tightened his grip. "Then stop it." She looked at him with fear in her eyes. "I cannot stop it. I am part of it." A deep silence followed those words. Even the war outside felt distant for a moment. Then the system voice returned, no longer calm, but final. "Merge required, vessel incomplete." Final synchronization initiated. Suddenly, energy chains formed around the child again, pulling her slowly upward from Elias's arms. She screamed in pain, reaching for him. "Human." Elias grabbed her instantly, refusing to let go. "No," he said firmly. "You are not going anywhere." But the system reacted immediately, increasing pressure, trying to separate them. The hunters moved one step forward, as if sensing the moment of completion. Human forces also stepped closer, unsure whether to shoot or retreat. Everything was collapsing into one decision point. The alien child's voice broke as she looked at Elias. "If I stay here, everyone dies." Elias shook his head, his voice heavy. "No. If you leave, you die." For the first time she hesitated, torn between fear and trust. Above them, through broken tunnels and collapsing ceilings, flashes of space battle lit the sky. Human and alien fleets destroying each other above the planet. But inside this chamber, the real battle was not weapons anymore. It was choice. The system continued. Final vessel integration. Incomplete consciousness detected. Override available. Elias looked at the glowing structure, then at the child. "What does it want from you?" he asked quietly. The child trembled, tears forming again. "Not me," she whispered. "It wants what I carry." Suddenly, her chest glowed brighter, revealing something hidden deep inside her biology. A core signal, like a sealed memory locked within her existence. The chamber reacted instantly, energy surging violently. Hunters lowered their weapons slightly. As if recognizing that signal, one of them spoke for the first time. "Core fragment confirmed." Final key present. Elias finally understood. She was not just created. She was carrying something inside her that could control or end the system itself. But using it meant her life would end. The child looked at Elias, her voice almost gone now. "I don't want to die." The words were soft, not a command, not fear of enemies. Just the truth of a child who had never been given a normal life. Elias held her face gently, forcing her to look at him. "You are not dying," he said. "Not while I am here." The system responded immediately. Emotional interference detected. Invalid parameter. Energy spikes began increasing rapidly. The chamber collapsing inward like a star losing control. Human commander voices screamed through comms. "Captain Varn, extract now. That structure is collapsing." But Elias did not move. He looked at the child one last time, and then made a decision no soldier was supposed to make. He turned toward the system core. "If she is the key," he said, "then I choose what happens next." The system paused for the first time. User input not recognized. Elias stepped forward, still holding the child. "I recognize it," he said. "She is not a weapon. She is not a lock. She is alive." The chamber reacted violently, as if rejecting that statement. But the child suddenly stopped shaking. She looked at Elias, something changing in her expression. "Human." She whispered again, softer than before. Then she pressed her forehead against his chest. "Don't let me die." And in that moment, everything stopped. The energy, the hunters, the system, the war above. All of it froze for a single heartbeat, as if the entire galaxy was waiting to see what a human would choose. Elias closed his eyes, holding her tightly, and answered, "I won't."